Well, I think in order to arrive at that point, there are a couple of things around Crete in particular that we need to sort out. And the first is that Crete has grown in leaps and bounds. And I think the numbers that people have in mind are not really contemporary. On the one hand, revenues, as far as 2025 concerned, and that's Bank of Greece's data, has been at 4.3 billion. That makes almost 20% of the whole Greece. And that is on the back of a very strong growth that Crete has experienced over the last 2-3 years as it was scaling up. The second, and on that one, allow me to stay a bit, is on the matter of overcrowding, because people have been saying, well, you know what, there is not enough space, etc. And indeed, it is an important element. It should not be understated. If one looks around at European studies, there are some focused contemporary one, recent one, where they put Crete on the 6th place around Europe as far as tourism density is concerned. And we're talking, there are some known places ahead of that. Is the South Aegean, the Balearic Islands, and also certain places on the Adriatic. Now, if one turns it to land use density, their Crete is looking a bit better. It is faring definitely better than other very popular places with similar characteristics like Mallorca, like Malta, like Capri, where they operate at much higher multiples. Therefore, on that point, allow me to say that it is rather a phenomenon of rapid growth that has brought Crete here. So in terms of where it actually stands and what is the role of banks, are banks there in order to just continuing the status quo, or are they there to finance the transition? On that one, I think we need to look Crete for what it is. And its economy is not as shallow as many people think. It has about 120 companies that are really doing well in the non-tourist area. I mean, we're talking companies north of 10 million turnover. And these very companies, they are across the board. They are in primary sector, manufacturing and services, good, strong export-oriented companies. And these do create a base which will allow Crete to transition into a broader scale. And that brings me to an element that people are often overlooked, and I'm coming now closer to the answer of what you're saying. Land use planning and public infrastructure are very important elements in order to assess what a place can do and what banks can do about it. So the issue is not anymore how much Crete has in terms of tourism, but actually where it is, how it is distributed. If one has outdated land use planning and zoning, that means that actually development is not going in a normally distributed way, but it goes mostly into specific coastal areas. And that accentuates the problem. We should do it otherwise. We should actually work on understanding what is the carrying capacity by looking at certain public investment that it is out in area like sewage, like water systems, and overall resource management, but also roads in secondary or rural areas and how they connect. Because that is important, as lack of capacity transforms growth into a constraint. So all of a sudden you have the opposite effect of what one thought. So overcrowding is not a demand-driven issue, just it is also a supply side. And given that the foundation of the islands were such as I said through, we came up with the following idea in order to baseline the whole thing and see where the gaps are. We are going to be facilitating that fact-based discussion by commissioning an independent study to the Technical University of Crete, and I see here also the representatives of it, in order to map, on the one hand, the structure of the economy, but on the other hand, also to look at the constraint and the risks. And that is going to be a multidisciplinary team looking at that, where infrastructure and land use pressures are going to be identified so that we can then, and only then we will be able to properly answer the question, is what is the investment pathways over the medium terms? So the key point is that not to prescribe any specific solutions, not to go marginally to plug in any gaps, but actually to plan and act for the long term.
We love data. We're economists, so you're preaching to the converted. There's nothing like having a good collection of data to inform your decisions. You've taken a lot of decisions already, and the data hasn't come in yet. So Are you concerned at all that this study is going to show up uncomfortable, perhaps, areas where maybe some of the decisions you took, you would have taken different ones?
That's very interesting, because someone of the team, when we were sort of percolating with the idea, came exactly with that very question.
Right.
Well, I can tell you, this should be unbiased, because, if there are areas where they're overfinanced, areas where the geography has certain capacity constraints, or if there are business models where there are components which they actually lead to constraints, so be it. Put it out. People should know, and we should adjust also our decisions. It is about Crete's development. Now, if something is not done properly so far, who are the first to bear the brunt? Is the economy of the island, is its own people, and only then it's going to be the balance sheet, eventually, of the institutions financing growth. But it's much more important to actually know sooner if there are certain areas where there are risks that are uncovered, so that we have time to mitigate them, rather waiting for later when it's going to be too narrow a bandwidth in order to adjust to that. We're in the business of trying to finance sustainable operating models, and we take up risks that are associated to that. I think George Peristeris very eloquently mentioned that before, but we don't do it the other way around. So the scope of the study is going to go beyond the standard economic assessment. We have put to the teams very specific questions. We said, guys, baseline the growth that it is today, tell us where it can go. Tell us which are the areas where we're going to have the maximum impact by certain additional investments. Look at the Castelli Airport, look at the Voak Ring Road, Northern Axis. Tell us what is the impact that's going to be having on that one. Which are the sectors that they have the strongest potentiality in order to contribute to the medium-term outlook? And perhaps most importantly, what are the policy interventions to really engage into to achieve maximum impact?
When do you expect that study to report?
Well, I think we have started.
Cover your ears.
we have just started, so I think it's going to be a function of how much we're going to be having the teams doing very intense work. But I think over the next, until the end of the year, we'll definitely have it.
Okay.
And I need to say that is going to be publicly available to everyone, to policymakers, to business people, to everyone to the research community, everyone that would want to have a look at that.
That's really interesting and something to watch out for, I think, for investors interested in Crete and for Cretans themselves, obviously. I wanted to move on. I'm going to combine a couple of things here very, very briefly as our time runs out. The diversification of investment in Crete in two directions. One is we have a tremendous focus on tourism in particular months in the island. How do you diversify that tourism offering so that it spreads throughout the year? And the other is, tourism is the core of the Cretan economy. How do you make sure that other sectors are getting a fair say?
Well, that's a very valid point. And in terms of seasonality, I have to admit, over the past couple of years, we have been broadening beyond the 6-7 months season that we had it over here. But there are two important things to keep in mind if we are to venture towards that direction further. The first is that we need to continue to embed into the tourism product more systematically the promotion of things that go beyond those 6-month season. And thankfully, Crete has a lot of that. It has its gastronomy, its culture, archaeology, and also it has this marvelous mild climate even over the winter time. The second is connectivity. And the Castelli Airport plays a dear role to that. Also, the energy connectivity plays a dear role to that. So we need to understand that seasonality is not just a supply-side phenomenon. It is also following demand partners. And on the demand patterns, it's not just when the Europeans are having the holidays. We need to push more. We need to think about developing a digital nomad community. We need to think about how to bring high-end second homes also more here in Crete so that people are populating that beyond that. And also there are some transformational investments beyond Voak and Castelli. For example, the Heraklion 1 data center. This is also something that will help bridge the gap between the summer and a whole year around. And these are not just in core infrastructure, but also what builds around it. SME clustering, issues that have to do with logistics, supply chains, digital adoption, workforce housing. Through the study, I'm quite sure that these issues would be surfacing, along with other potentially auxiliary capacity areas which are not as big. But for example, the port capacity in Lasithia and Rethymno could also play a role in that. So given the hospitality culture and the international character that Crete is having, I think we're destined to succeed in that one.
Excellent. Well, that's a great note to finish on. I'm sad that we have to finish because we're out of time. We could speak for a lot longer, I'm sure, but I'm very grateful to you. Please join me in thanking our speaker.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alistair.
Thanks a lot.